I've been working on this game for more than a year now. Time to finish it off. Within the next 4 weeks I want to finish off my indie game Will You Snail, on which I've been working on for more than a year now. The game is finally getting to a point where I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I've planned out all of the remaining tasks and it really seems like we can get them done within just 4 weeks. Yes, big brain, I did some planning for once. All of the best practices I talked about in my burnout video recently, I'm gonna try to keep them up. That means no crunching, which actually adds a little bit of an extra challenge to this challenge. But I know that in the long run this will only make me more efficient, so I decided to settle on 6 hours of work per day, which leaves me with around 100 hours to finish this game. Can it be done? Let's find out.
What if I told you that it is possible to simulate consciousness?
Will You Snail is a game about artificial intelligence. You go up against a superhuman evil AI called Squid. And let's just say, compared to other AI antagonists, you know, Squid is a bit more trollolololol. It just doesn't seem to take ruling the world very seriously. The game is mainly a skill-based platformer, but with a little bit of a twist.
You just try to reach the end of the level, and I'll try to kill you. Good luck.
The twist being that the AI tries to predict your movement and spawns traps and spikes in real time in order to stop you from completing the level. Will You Snail is a challenging game. It is a little bit of a crazy game. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, please be so kind and head over to Steam and hit that wishlist button, because that makes sure that you don't miss the launch and it also helps me to gain some additional visibility. The link to the Steam page is obviously in the description. I've pretty much already completed all of the levels and gameplay, so the two most important things the game's still missing are story and voice acting. The game will not be released in 4 weeks, it will be released in 2020, just to clear up some possible misunderstandings.
Hey!
Now let's get right into the first week. This is gonna be a 4-part series, hope you enjoy. Yeah, this entire area, basically the 4 upcoming weeks, and I've split this into hours, 6 work hours per day, and I think I've planned this somewhat generously. For the first week I mostly focused on implementing some new story beats into the game. Dealing with the lore of Will You Snail is always super challenging for me, because I've never done it before. I've never told any stories with my games. I mean, in theory I have it all written out lying on my windowsill, but I'm just really curious to see how people will react to it. I have no idea if it's any good. The 2 story beats I've implemented so far is this Ocean of Lights right here, as well as this Universe Fractal we made on stream a couple of weeks ago. So 2 of these green cards are already implemented. 4 more to go. What scares me most about my storytelling approach is that there's not really any development throughout the story. The story is really mostly about figuring out the universe you're in. Is that enough story for a skill-based platformer? Let's just hope the answer to that is yes. Okay, I've been working for 2 hours now. Here's what I've got so far. This is the new story level.
Error. This voice line has not been recorded yet.
And the voice line has not been recorded yet, but it's already triggered properly. And we have some cool little squares here to pop. Usually I'd be sitting inside now and work, and then at the end of the day I'd be mad that I didn't get any sun. I tried really hard to take some proper breaks this week, and I think I can tell that it paid off. You just feel so much more refreshed after a walk, and that just allows you to be way more productive. The toughest thing after the break was figuring out how I wanted the new story levels to look like. There were a lot of different options, a lot of cool things that might have worked, but in the end I decided to go for this look right here, as that kind of fits the underwater theme of that chapter. I'm not quite sure how many story spoilers I should put into these videos, where to be fair there's not that much that can be spoiled. Most things are pretty obvious probably. This section is mostly supposed to raise some questions about existence in general, about evolution perhaps, what some of the wider implications of evolution could be in the context of artificial intelligence. I'm just saying things that make me sound smart at this point. Let's move on to Tuesday! I started out by writing the voice lines I needed for this story section, then started blocking out the level, even though I wasn't quite 100% sure what I was going for. So for the visuals I just improvised a little bit. Then I went for a quick run before I started filling the level with some humans. The first draft of the level looked like this. Spoiler, the humans will all die. So I decided to add some drones capable of making that happen. At this point I probably had only about 3 hours remaining, so I had to prioritize what I want to do next. Before I make this look any better, perhaps I should bring this into a functional state in the first place. For example, all of these drones need to fly out here when I enter the second trigger zone or something like that, and then they should only start shooting when I enter the third trigger zone. So I focused on making those crucial things work first, and then I moved on to adding some fireworks, making those people bounce around a little bit. The final result of the day looked like this.
Error. This voice line has not been recorded yet. Error. This voice line has not been recorded yet. Error. This voice line has not been recorded yet. Error. This voice
So even though this is pretty cliche, I feel like it already has quite a bit of emotional impact, and it definitely helps to establish Squid as the villain.
Good morning, I got up a bit earlier today, 9 AM. My plan says implementing voice lines today. But I'm more in the mood for more story stuff, so I'm just gonna do more story stuff. Woo!
So I did some quick rescheduling and off we go. The idea for this level was to build a horizontal level that basically resembles a timeline. This is how the timeline looked like after 2 hours of work. Next challenge, drawing a monkey in Will You Snail look. Great monkey. This is a monkey. Also, I made it way too small. Ah! This looks like an old lady or something. No! I want monkey! Oh no, I made the outlines too thick. No! That's not how I want this to look. Let's try again. Now it's a cat. P.S. a monkey sprite never came into existence. Luckily, I think you can understand my evolution chain just fine without them. Here's what it looked like after 4 hours. At this point I was starting to panic a little bit because I only had 2 hours remaining and there was still quite a bit to do. Despite that, I took my second 2-hour break of the day, did some slacklining in the garden, which actually gave me some great ideas on how to finish the level on time. For example, by reusing some assets I had already created. And they're there. Just 1 hour later, the level was done, showing the evolution and reproduction of super intelligence. And every time you leave the level on the right, you'll enter it again on the left. So you're basically stuck in an endless loop and you have to figure out how to escape. Speaking of escape, on Thursday I finally did something else. I'll implement some in-game voice lines instead. I'm thinking the way I go about this is I'll just start writing a bunch of voice lines here and then I'll implement them. Wow, what a crazy good plan, Jonas. And that's exactly what I did. The voice lines are basically the only other big part of the game that's still missing. And they're actually quite important.
Oh, is the snail movement too fast and unprecise for you?
Because they are what makes Squid feel alive. They are where a lot of the humor of the game comes from. They're really part of the main selling point, that you have that cocky AI that constantly keeps making fun of you. I want to do my best to create that illusion of actually going up against something intelligent, which is of course not the case. But I feel like if Squid is able to react pretty believably to everything the player is doing, that could make for some pretty crazy and memorable moments. Okay, very nice. I've been busy. I've been writing quite a couple of voice lines. Yep, about 64 voice lines, which took me quite a while because obviously you don't want to be too sloppy with the writing. The writing is obviously quite important. But first of all, I'm gonna take a break. Yada yada yada, weather was very nice. Let's download the TSV file into GameMaker. Now we have access to all of those voice lines. And I can see my voice lines on the left, and then I can see my code on the right. Pretty useful setup, makes looking back and forth quite easy. And then of course in game I already have a system in place that makes implementing these voice lines quite simple. Here for example, these 8 voice lines for when you die to a spike. Implementing those voice lines are basically 2 lines of code. If you were killed by a spike, then play one of these death spike voice lines.
Whenever I've implemented a voice line, I just mark it green.
At the end of the day, I had a ton of new voice lines in the game. For example, there's a voice line for being killed when you're idle, for when you die after a jump, for when you die after falling down from somewhere, even one for when you die after button smashing your keyboard.
This voice line has not been recorded yet.
Unfortunately, it's still a little hard to imagine how it'll feel like in the finished game without the placeholder voice lines. Nevertheless, this was a pretty epic week. I felt productive, I didn't feel stressed, got a lot done, and had some fun. The series will continue for another 3, so hit subscribe.
And wishlist the game right now or Squid will come for you.
You might be wondering what happened to Friday. The answer is, guess when I edited this YouTube video. I need some time for that as well. Stay happy until the next episode. Bye bye!